Lena had always known life was not easy. She lived in a small, modest house with her father and stepmother. Her mother had passed away when she was very young, and since then, her stepmother had never been kind to her. She often felt like an outsider in her own home. Lena's father loved her dearly, but he was a gentle man who avoided confrontation. So he rarely stood up to his wife when she scolded or belittled Lena. Every day, Lena woke up early to help with the household chores. She swept the floors, washed the dishes, cooked meals, and made sure everything in the house was in order. She never complained, even when the work felt endless. Despite all the difficulties at home, she remained cheerful and hopeful. Her friends at school often noticed her kindness and how she never let anyone see her sadness. Her stepmother, on the other hand, took every opportunity to make Lena feel small. She would comment on Lena's simple clothes, her lack of expensive belongings, and even her manners. Sometimes, she would call Lena lazy, even though Lena worked harder than anyone else in the house. It was clear to Lena that her stepmother had never wanted her around, and every little mistake she made was used against her. Lena often wondered why her stepmother was so cruel. She knew she could never replace her mother, and perhaps that was the source of the resentment. Still, Lena never lost hope that one day things would change for the better. She had learned to find happiness in small things, watching the sunset, hearing birds sing, or helping her younger brother with his homework. Those moments gave her strength to face each day. One morning, Lena was busy cleaning the house when her stepmother came into the kitchen with a large envelope in her hand. "Look, we have been invited to a grand party," she said, her tone dripping with pride. Lena looked up, curious. Her stepmother rarely attended events like this. The invitation was from one of the city's wealthiest families. Known for hosting lavish parties attended by influential people, Lena's stepmother was excited, talking about what she would wear, how she would be admired, and how everyone would look at her with envy. She glanced at Lena and added, "You will come too, of course, but you will help me serve and make sure everything runs smoothly. I won't have anyone embarrassing me in front of my guests." Lena's heart sank. She knew this meant she would not be treated as a guest but as a servant. Still, she nodded politely, saying nothing. She had learned long ago that arguing with her stepmother never helped. Days passed, and Lena prepared for the party. She wore a simple dress, one that was neat and clean, but far from the glamorous outfits of the wealthy. She carefully tied her hair back and tried to feel confident. Even though she knew she would be the subject of her stepmother's harsh words and the judgment of the other guests, she reminded herself that no matter what happened, she had to stay calm and composed. When they arrived at the mansion, Lena was awestruck. The house was enormous, with bright lights, elegant decorations, and a garden filled with colorful flowers. Waiters moved gracefully through the crowd, serving drinks and hors d'oeuvres. While guests laughed and talked in polished voices, Lena felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had never seen anything like this before. Her stepmother immediately stepped into the spotlight, greeting guests with a wide smile and animated gestures. She seemed to revel in the attention, completely ignoring Lena, except when she needed her to carry trays, refill glasses, or tidy up small messes. Lena moved quietly, careful not to draw attention. Though she could feel the eyes of the other guests sometimes glancing her way, some looked curious, some looked judgmental, but Lena kept her head held high. It didn't take long for the stepmother to make her first public display of cruelty. A guest complimented Lena's simple dress, and her stepmother laughed loudly. "This is what we call dressing for the floor," she said, pointing at Lena. Guests laughed along, and Lena felt a flush of embarrassment. She lowered her eyes and continued her work silently. She had learned to endure, but this moment hurt deeply. Despite the humiliation, Lena noticed a man across the room who seemed different. He was not laughing at her or her situation. In fact, he was observing quietly, with a calm and thoughtful expression. Lena felt a strange sense of curiosity about him, but she quickly looked away, focusing on her tasks. She knew she had to survive the evening without causing any problems. As the night went on, Lena continued her duties. She served drinks, cleared tables, and tidied up crumbs. Each time her stepmother shouted at her or made a cruel remark, Lena swallowed her hurt and reminded herself that this was temporary. She imagined a future where she could live freely, where she could be respected and treated with kindness. Those thoughts gave her strength. During a brief moment when no one was watching, Lena stepped outside to catch her breath. The cool night air brushed against her face, and she closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself imagine a life far from the harshness of her home. In that quiet moment, she felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that one day things could be different. Back inside, the party continued with laughter, music, and conversations about wealth, power, and social status. Lena moved through the crowd as a shadow, invisible yet present, performing her tasks diligently. She noticed the man she had seen earlier again. He was still watching, not with judgment, but with a hint of admiration. His presence gave her a small, unexpected comfort. Perhaps he saw something in her that others had overlooked. As the evening progressed, Lena's stepmother became more daring in her humiliation. She made Lena carry an overflowing tray to a group of guests, spilling a few drinks in the process. Guests laughed, and Lena felt her face burn. She apologized quietly, cleaned the mess, and continued her work, her hands shaking slightly but her spirit unbroken. She had faced challenges before and had learned to keep her dignity, even when the world seemed to mock her. Despite the harshness of the evening, Lena could not ignore the moments of kindness from strangers. Some guests offered gentle smiles or brief words of encouragement. These small gestures reminded her that not everyone judged by appearances. They also gave her a glimmer of hope that the world was not entirely cruel, and that perhaps, someday, she would find people who valued her for who she truly was. By the end of the night, Lena was exhausted. Her feet ached from standing and moving constantly, her hands were sore from carrying trays and cleaning, and her heart was heavy from the constant humiliation. Yet, as she walked home with her stepmother and father, she felt a quiet pride. She had survived the night with grace, even when the world seemed against her. Lena knew that life would continue to be difficult, but she also knew that she had the strength to face it. She had endured cruelty, humiliation, and hardship before, and she would endure it again if necessary. But deep inside, a small spark of hope burned brightly. She sensed that something, or someone, might change her life one day. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt that, perhaps, just perhaps, things could be different the next evening. The city buzzed with excitement as news spread about the grand party hosted by the wealthy family. Lena's stepmother could not stop talking about it. She was thrilled to imagine how all the guests would notice her elegance, her beauty, and her charm. Lena listened quietly, already anticipating the unpleasant moments she would face once again. She had learned to brace herself for these situations, but the thought of another night filled with humiliation made her stomach twist nervously. When they arrived at the mansion, Lena immediately felt the weight of the opulence surrounding her. The chandeliers sparkled like stars, the walls were adorned with exquisite paintings, and the floors gleamed as if they had been polished to perfection just that morning. Guests mingled with laughter and animated conversation, dressed in clothing that was far beyond Lena's modest means. She kept her head down and tried to move as quietly as possible, carrying trays of drinks and small appetizers with careful precision. Her stepmother wasted no time in asserting her dominance. She positioned herself near the center of the gathering, greeting the guests with an air of superiority, and made sure to keep Lena within her line of sight. Whenever Lena served a drink or approached a table, her stepmother would make a subtle yet cutting remark. "Be careful not to spill, or you might ruin my night," she whispered, her tone dripping with mock concern. Lena felt the familiar sting of embarrassment, but remained composed, responding only with quiet nods. As the evening progressed, Lena observed the interactions among the guests. Many of them were caught up in superficial conversations, discussing business deals, fashion, and social connections. Their laughter sometimes felt harsh, especially when her stepmother orchestrated situations that drew attention to Lena's simple appearance and background. Despite it all, Lena maintained her calm demeanor, a small smile occasionally appearing on her lips to mask the discomfort she felt at one point. Lena had to serve a tray of drinks to a group of high-profile guests who were discussing a recent charity initiative. She moved carefully, mindful of the delicate crystal glasses in her hands. Just as she was about to place the tray on the table, her stepmother stepped in front of her, intentionally bumping the tray. Drinks spilled slightly, and the stepmother feigned shock. "Oh, how clumsy of you," she said loudly, drawing the attention of the group. Lena's face heated with embarrassment, but she quickly cleaned up the spill and offered sincere apologies. She felt the weight of everyone's gaze, yet she refused to let them see her despair. As Lena continued her duties, she noticed a man who seemed detached from the frivolity around him. He observed quietly, not laughing at the situation or joining in the judgments of the other guests. His eyes lingered on Lena with a curious expression, and for a brief moment their gazes met. Lena felt a strange sense of recognition, as if he could see beyond the surface, beyond the clothes and the status that defined the other guests. She quickly looked away, returning to her work. But the encounter left a lingering impression. The stepmother grew bolder as the night went on. She found every opportunity to mock Lena, pointing out minor mistakes and exaggerating them for the amusement of the guests. When Lena dropped a napkin while clearing a table, the stepmother laughed loudly. "Clumsy as ever," she said, making sure the guests could hear. Lena's hands trembled slightly, but she straightened immediately and continued her work, refusing to let her stepmother's cruelty dictate her emotions, despite the harsh treatment. Lena found moments of quiet strength. She focused on the tasks at hand, finding satisfaction in completing them efficiently and gracefully. Each tray served, each table cleaned, and each small act of kindness she offered to guests reminded her that she could endure. She had survived far worse situations and had learned to find her own dignity, even when others tried to strip it away. Between the chaos of the party, Lena managed to steal brief moments to observe the guests more closely. She saw families laughing together, young couples whispering in corners, and groups of friends enjoying each other's company. The atmosphere was one of wealth and privilege, yet beneath it, Lena noticed the same human emotions she experienced in her own modest life: happiness, anxiety, hope, and fear. These observations gave her a sense of connection to the world beyond her immediate struggles. During a lull in the party, Lena was asked to serve a group of guests who were discussing their recent travels abroad. She listened politely, offering small smiles and nods where appropriate, careful not to draw attention to herself. One guest, noticing her humility and quiet composure, complimented her gently. Lena's stepmother immediately interjected, dismissing the remark with a laugh and redirecting the conversation. Lena felt a brief pang of disappointment, but did not let it show. She knew that true recognition was not always immediate, and that patience was essential. As the night wore on, Lena's interactions became more frequent with the man who had been observing her. He approached her discreetly, asking simple questions about her life and interests. Lena answered politely, surprised by his genuine curiosity and lack of judgment. Their conversation was brief, but it offered Lena a rare sense of comfort and validation amidst the tension of the party. She found herself feeling a spark of hope that perhaps someone could see her worth beyond the superficial judgments of wealth and appearance. The stepmother, unaware of the growing connection, continued her public displays of arrogance and cruelty. She instructed Lena to carry a heavy tray of desserts to a table of influential guests. Lena managed the task carefully, balancing the tray with steady hands. When one dessert tipped slightly, her stepmother exclaimed loudly, drawing laughter from nearby guests. Lena's cheeks flushed, but she calmly corrected the situation and completed her task with grace, determined not to allow her stepmother's cruelty to define her. Throughout the evening, Lena observed the subtle ways in which character and kindness could stand out amidst wealth and power. She noticed the man paying attention to her resilience, the guests who offered small acts of consideration, and the quiet satisfaction she felt in performing her duties well. These moments reinforced her belief that dignity and integrity mattered more than appearances or social status by the end of the night. Lena was physically exhausted, but emotionally resilient. She had endured humiliation and handled the pressures of the elite gathering with quiet strength. As she walked home with her father and stepmother, she reflected on the events of the evening. She realized that while the world could be harsh and unfair, she had the ability to maintain her self-respect and inner peace. She also recognized that there were individuals who valued true character, and that recognition, even if rare, was deeply meaningful. The experience at the party became a turning point for Lena. She understood that life's challenges would continue, but she also recognized her own power to navigate them with grace and resilience. The small moments of kindness she encountered reminded her that there were good people in the world, people who would see her for who she truly was. With each step she took, Lena felt a growing sense of determination to rise above her circumstances, to maintain her dignity, and to embrace the hope that one day her life could change for the better. After the night of the party, Lena returned to her usual routine, but something inside her felt different. The house was the same, the walls still quiet, and her stepmother's voice still sharp, yet Lena felt as though a small window had opened in her heart. She could not stop thinking about the man she had briefly spoken to at the party. His calm eyes and gentle questions stayed with her, not because of who he was, but because of how he treated her like a human being. The next morning, Lena woke up early, as always. She cleaned the house, prepared breakfast, and helped her father get ready for work. Her stepmother barely acknowledged her, except to point out a spot on the floor that needed re-cleaning. Lena did it silently. She had learned that peace often came from quiet endurance. Still, her mind wandered back to the party, replaying moments she wished she could forget and others she could not help but remember. In the days that followed, whispers from the party began to spread. Some guests talked about the stepmother's rude behavior more than the luxury of the event. Others mentioned the quiet girl who handled embarrassment with grace. Lena heard none of this directly, but she felt subtle changes. Her stepmother seemed more irritable than usual, snapping at small things and complaining about how people did not show her enough respect. Lena sensed that the night had not gone as perfectly as her stepmother had imagined. One afternoon, as Lena was returning from the market with groceries, a car stopped a short distance away. It was simple but elegant, unlike the flashy vehicles she had seen at the party. A man stepped out. It was him. For a moment, Lena froze, unsure if she was mistaken. But when he smiled gently and greeted her, she knew it was real. He spoke politely, explaining that he had been looking for her since the party. He said he had asked around carefully, not wanting to embarrass her or cause trouble. Lena felt nervous but also curious. She listened quietly as he told her that her calm strength that night had left a strong impression on him. He said he admired people who stayed kind, even when treated unfairly. Lena did not know how to respond at first. She was not used to praise, especially from someone who lived in a world so different from hers. She thanked him softly and explained that she was just doing what she had to do. Her humility seemed to impress him even more. He smiled and said that humility was rare, especially among people who had every reason to be proud. They talked for a short while on the roadside. He asked about her dreams, and Lena hesitated before answering. No one had asked her that in a long time. She admitted that she wanted to study, to work honestly, and to live a peaceful life where she did not feel like a burden. She spoke carefully, choosing simple words, afraid of saying too much. He listened without interrupting, as if every word mattered. Before leaving, he offered her help. Not charity, he explained, but an opportunity. He mentioned a small training program supported by his company, meant for young people who had talent and dedication but lacked resources. Lena felt overwhelmed. She had heard promises before that led nowhere, but something about his tone felt sincere. He gave her a simple card and told her to think about it, assuring her there was no pressure. That evening, Lena sat alone in her room, holding the card in her hands. Her heart was filled with confusion and hope at the same time. She wondered if accepting help would change how people saw her. She worried about her stepmother's reaction, yet deep inside, she felt that this chance might be the door she had been waiting for. Days passed. Lena gathered the courage to attend the program. She did not tell her stepmother, only her father, who looked at her with quiet pride and concern. He encouraged her to try, reminding her that she deserved a better future. Lena felt strength in his words, even though he could not openly stand against his wife at the program. Lena felt out of place at first. The rooms were clean and bright, and the people there spoke with confidence. But as the days went on, she realized that effort mattered more than background. She worked hard, listened carefully, and learned quickly. Her natural kindness and discipline made her stand out in a gentle way. The man from the party visited the program occasionally. He never treated Lena differently from the others, which she appreciated. Their conversations were simple and respectful. Slowly, trust began to grow between them. Lena started to believe that she was not invisible anymore. Back at home, her stepmother noticed changes. Lena seemed more confident, more focused. This irritated her. She made cutting remarks, accusing Lena of acting proud or secretive. Lena remained calm. She no longer felt as helpless as before. The outside world had shown her that she had value. One evening, stepmother overheard a phone call about the program. She became suspicious and demanded answers. Lena explained honestly, expecting anger. Her stepmother laughed bitterly, calling it foolish and temporary. But Lena did not argue. For the first time, she did not feel crushed by those words. As weeks turned into months, Lena's life slowly began to change. She learned new skills, met supportive people, and discovered strengths she never knew she had. The man who had noticed her at the party continued to support the program, always encouraging growth without control. Lena still faced difficulties at home, but her inner world had shifted. She was no longer just surviving. She was becoming someone with direction and hope. The humiliation of the past no longer defined her. It became a chapter that led her toward something better. She often thought back to the party, the laughter, the shame, and the quiet moment when someone chose to see her differently. That single moment had changed the path of her life. Lena understood now that sometimes dignity planted in the darkest moments could grow into a future filled with light. Life began to move forward for Lena in ways she had never imagined. Each morning no longer felt heavy with fear or hopelessness. She still woke up early and completed her responsibilities at home, but now she carried something new inside her. It was confidence, quiet and steady, growing stronger with each passing day. The training program gave her purpose, and the people there treated her with respect. That simple change made a deep difference. At the program, Lena learned practical skills that could help her earn a living. She learned how to communicate clearly, how to manage tasks, and how to believe in her own ability. At first, she spoke very little, afraid of saying the wrong thing. But the instructors were patient, and over time, Lena began to participate more. When she shared her thoughts, people listened. That feeling was new to her, and it filled her with both joy and disbelief. Slowly, her confidence began to show in her posture, her voice, and the way she carried herself. She was still humble, still kind, but she no longer looked down when spoken to. Others noticed this change. Some of the people at the program became her friends. They encouraged her and celebrated her small successes. Lena realized she had spent so many years surviving that she had forgotten what it felt like to grow at home. The change did not go unnoticed. Her stepmother watched Lena closely, disturbed by the calm strength that now surrounded her. The cruel remarks continued, but they no longer had the same effect. Lena listened politely and carried on. This silence frustrated her stepmother even more. She was used to seeing fear or sadness in Lena's eyes. Now she saw neither. One evening, Lena returned home later than usual. She had stayed behind to help with an extra task at the program. Her stepmother confronted her the moment she stepped inside. She demanded to know where Lena had been and accused her of wasting time. Lena answered calmly, explaining that she was learning skills that could help her find work. Her stepmother laughed loudly and dismissed it as nonsense. But Lena noticed something beneath that laughter. It was worry. Meanwhile, word about Lena's progress began to spread quietly. People connected to the program spoke highly of her discipline and honesty. Opportunities started to open, small at first, but meaningful. She was offered part-time work related to her training. The pay was modest, but to Lena, it meant independence. For the first time, she could earn something with her own hands and mind. When Lena told her father about the job, his eyes filled with pride. He thanked her for not giving up on herself. Though he was still quiet at home, Lena could feel his silent support growing stronger. It gave her courage to keep moving forward, even when the atmosphere in the house remained tense. The man who had first noticed her at the party continued to observe her progress from a distance. He never interfered directly or made her feel dependent. Instead, he encouraged growth and self-reliance. Their conversations were occasional but meaningful. He asked about her goals, and Lena spoke with more clarity each time. She no longer spoke only of survival, but of building a future. As Lena's life began to change, her stepmother's world started to shift in the opposite direction. People from the party remembered her harsh behavior more than her appearance. Invitations became fewer. Conversations grew colder. The same people who once admired her now whispered behind her back. She could sense her social standing slipping away, and it angered her. One afternoon, Lena was unexpectedly invited to attend a small gathering connected to the training program. It was nothing like the grand party, but it was respectful and sincere. People spoke openly, shared ideas, and treated each other as equals. Lena hesitated at first, worried about her stepmother's reaction, but decided to go. She wore a simple outfit, neat and confident, and walked into the room without fear. At the gathering, Lena spoke about her journey when asked. She did not blame anyone or speak with bitterness. She simply shared her experiences and the lessons she had learned. The room listened quietly. Some people were moved by her honesty. Others admired her strength. Lena felt something shift inside her again. She was no longer ashamed of her past. It had shaped her, but it no longer controlled her. The stepmother later heard about the gathering through distant connections. When she realized Lena had been invited as a participant rather than a helper, her anger grew. She accused Lena of trying to embarrass the family. Lena listened respectfully and responded calmly. She said she was only trying to improve her life. The words were simple, but they carried strength. That night, Lena lay awake thinking about how far she had come. She remembered the humiliation at the party, the laughter, and the way she had felt invisible. Now, people looked at her and saw potential. They listened when she spoke. She understood that dignity did not come from status or wealth. It came from self-respect. Opportunities continued to grow. Lena was offered a chance to work full-time. It meant longer hours and more responsibility, but she welcomed it. Each step forward made her feel more capable. She began saving money, planning carefully, thinking about a future where she could live independently. At home, the tension reached a quiet peak. Her stepmother sensed that she was losing control. Lena was no longer dependent in the same way. This frightened her. She tried new ways to provoke a reaction, but Lena remained steady. Her silence was not weakness. It was peace. One day, Lena crossed paths again with people who had attended the original party. This time the looks were different. Some greeted her with respect. Others looked embarrassed. Lena did not seek revenge or recognition. She simply returned their greetings with kindness. That alone spoke louder than words. As the days passed, Lena felt ready for the next chapter of her life. She was no longer defined by humiliation or fear. She had built something from patience, effort, and quiet strength. The girl who had once stood silently at the edge of a room was now stepping confidently into her own space, deep inside. Lena knew that a moment of truth was approaching. The world that once judged her without knowing her was slowly beginning to see her clearly. And when that moment arrived, she was ready not with anger, but with grace. Lena's life had begun to take a shape she had only dreamed about in the quiet moments of her past. She still lived in the same house, with her stepmother's constant remarks in the background. But her world outside had changed dramatically. She had a job that gave her a sense of independence, and the people she met treated her with respect and kindness. Each day she felt stronger and more capable of taking control of her future. Her work was challenging, but Lena found fulfillment in it. She discovered talents she had never been aware of, and the encouragement from her mentors helped her grow. The man from the party continued to support her, checking in occasionally, offering advice and guidance without ever making her feel indebted. Their conversations were thoughtful and meaningful. He respected her journey and admired her patience and determination. One day, Lena's boss invited her to a meeting that involved important decision-making. She felt nervous but prepared herself carefully. She presented her ideas clearly, and they were well received. Her confidence grew further. For the first time, she realized that she could navigate spaces that had once felt completely alien to her. The sense of possibility filled her with hope. At home, tensions with her stepmother reached new levels. Her stepmother tried harder to assert dominance, making Lena's life more difficult in small, frustrating ways. Yet, Lena's patience and resilience had grown beyond what her stepmother could touch. She responded calmly to insults and avoided confrontations. Her father noticed the change and silently supported her whenever possible, offering smiles and small acts of reassurance. The turning point came when Lena was invited to a business event organized by her mentor. It was a smaller, professional gathering, but it held important connections. Lena attended with her head held high, wearing simple but elegant attire. She introduced herself confidently, shared her ideas, and listened carefully to others. For the first time, she felt entirely on equal footing with people who had once seemed unreachable. At the event, a man from the party approached her once again. He smiled warmly, expressing admiration for how much she had grown. They talked freely, discussing ambitions, projects, and life goals. Lena felt a deep sense of comfort in his presence. He was no longer just a figure from a humiliating past event. He had become someone who recognized her worth and supported her journey. Back home, stepmother's arrogance began to falter. She could no longer control Lena, nor could she dictate how the world saw her. Invitations to social gatherings became fewer, and people who once admired her now whispered about her behavior. The stepmother's cruelty, once so powerful, had lost its impact. Lena's quiet dignity and steady growth had become undeniable. One evening, Lena received a call from her workplace. They offered her a leadership position in a new project. It was a significant opportunity that came with responsibility and recognition. Lena felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She thought of her father, who had always silently encouraged her, and the man who had first seen her strength at the party. Both had played roles in reminding her that she was capable of so much more than she had been allowed to see. Accepting the position, Lena stepped into her new responsibilities with determination. She worked hard, guided her team with patience, and demonstrated the integrity that had become her hallmark. Her success grew steadily, not through shortcuts or favoritism, but through consistent effort, intelligence, and the kindness she extended to others. Meanwhile, the stepmother's world continued to crumble socially. People noticed the disparity between her arrogance and Lena's growing influence. Invitations stopped coming, and her reputation suffered. The very traits she had used to dominate Lena now isolated her from others. Lena, however, did not take pleasure in this. She understood that her own life was about growth and opportunity, not revenge. With time, Lena's financial independence increased. She saved, planned, and even helped her younger brother with his education. She could see the difference her efforts were making in her family's life. The small home, once a place of tension and humiliation, began to feel lighter. Lena's presence brought a quiet warmth, hope that had not been there before. Her relationship with the man from the party grew naturally. They've spent time together discussing plans for the future, business ideas, and personal growth. Lena appreciated that he never treated her as someone to be saved, but as a partner in conversation and thought. Trust and mutual respect formed the foundation of their bond, stronger than any superficial attraction. Eventually, Lena faced a moment of confrontation with her stepmother. There was no shouting, no public humiliation. Instead, Lena calmly asserted her independence, explaining that she would no longer accept mistreatment or interference. Her stepmother, for the first time, could see that Lena had grown beyond her control. The realization hit hard, and though she still struggled with anger, she had lost the power to diminish Lena. With this newfound freedom, Lena's life opened in ways she had never imagined. She continued to excel at work, gaining recognition and respect. She maintained her humility and kindness, helping others along the way. Her family, though small and quiet, began to find stability and happiness through her efforts. And her relationship with the man who first noticed her strength blossomed naturally. Based on mutual respect and understanding, looking back, Lena often reflected on the party where her stepmother had humiliated her. She realized that even in the darkest moments, dignity, patience, and resilience could create opportunities that the world would eventually recognize. The humiliation she had once felt became a distant memory, a lesson that had shaped her character but no longer controlled her future. Her journey from a timid, overlooked girl to a confident, independent woman became a story she shared with others when asked, not to boast, but to inspire. Lena had discovered that strength came from within, that integrity mattered more than status, and that life had a way of rewarding patience, humility, and hard work. And above all, she had learned that people who truly see your worth can change the path of your life in the most unexpected ways. Life after. Lena's rise in confidence and success took on a new rhythm. She still faced challenges as every day brought its own tests. She had developed a resilience that made each obstacle manageable. She woke up each morning with purpose, no longer weighed down by fear or the expectation of humiliation. She moved through her daily tasks with the quiet assurance of someone who knew her worth and was determined to make her life meaningful. Her work continued to grow in responsibility. She now led projects and coordinated with people from diverse backgrounds. Each day offered opportunities to learn, to communicate, and to solve problems. Lena had become skilled at noticing small details, anticipating issues before they arose, and helping others reach their goals. Her coworkers admired her ability to remain calm under pressure, her fairness, and her willingness to help others succeed. Outside of work, Lena's personal life flourished. She maintained her relationships with supportive friends she had met through her training program. They shared experiences, advice, and encouragement, forming a network of people who valued honesty and integrity above superficial appearances. These friendships provided her with strength and joy, reinforcing the sense of community she had been missing for so long. Her bond with the man who had first noticed her at the party also deepened. Their conversations became longer, more personal, and filled with shared dreams and goals. He never tried to control or dictate her choices. Instead, he encouraged her to grow in every way possible. Lena found comfort in his presence, knowing that he valued her mind, her strength, and her character. Together, they began discussing plans for collaboration on projects that could benefit others, combining resources, knowledge, and compassion. At home, Lena's relationship with her stepmother remained tense, but gradually evolved. The stepmother could no longer dominate Lena, and Lena's quiet assertiveness made that clear. There were moments of friction, as the stepmother occasionally tried to undermine her, but Lena's calm and measured responses minimized conflict. She focused on her own growth, rather than reacting with anger or resentment. Her father, still gentle and supportive, watched silently, proud of the woman Lena was becoming. One evening, Tayshan received an invitation to speak at a community event aimed at empowering young women. At first she hesitated, unsure if she was ready to share her story publicly. But with encouragement from friends and mentors, she agreed. On the day of the event, she arrived early, dressed simply yet confidently. As she spoke about her journey, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned, the audience listened intently. Lena's words were sincere, heartfelt, and free of bitterness. She focused on the strength that comes from resilience, importance of integrity, and the value of helping others. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People approached her afterward, thanking her for sharing her story and expressing how much it inspired them. Some shared their own struggles, and Lena offered words of encouragement and advice. For the first time, she realized how her experiences, even the painful ones, could serve a greater purpose. Her past humiliation had transformed into a source of strength and inspiration for others. As Lena's confidence grew, so did her ability to make decisions independently. She began to manage her finances wisely, invest in her future, and consider long-term goals. She thought about further education, career advancement, and ways to support her family. Each decision was made with careful thought and consideration. Reflecting the maturity she had developed over the years, her stepmother's behavior continued to deteriorate socially. The arrogance and cruelty that had once made her feel powerful now left her isolated. Invitations dwindled, and people who once sought her approval now avoided her company. Lena observed this quietly, feeling no satisfaction from her stepmother's decline. Instead, she focused on her own life, understanding that true success was not about revenge, but about growth and fulfillment. One day, Lena received a call from a prominent organization offering her a partnership opportunity. They had noticed her work ethic, integrity, and the impact she was making in her community. The role would involve leadership, strategic planning, and the chance to mentor others. Lena felt both excitement and nervousness. This opportunity represented another step forward in her journey, and she accepted it with determination as she stepped into this new role. Lena encountered challenges that tested her skills and patience. She had to navigate complex situations, make tough decisions, and ensure that projects stayed on track. Her past experiences had prepared her for these moments. She approached each challenge methodically, balancing empathy with efficiency. Her team respected her, and the results of her work spoke for themselves. Throughout this time, her relationship with the man from the party grew even stronger. They began working together on projects aimed at community development and education. Their collaboration was seamless because it was built on trust, mutual respect, and shared values. Lena found joy in the work not only because it allowed her to grow professionally, but also because it enabled her to make a positive difference in the lives of others. At home, Lena began to assert her independence more fully. She managed her schedule, finances, and responsibilities without needing constant guidance or approval. Her stepmother's attempts to control her became less effective. Lena's calm confidence and clear sense of purpose created a protective barrier against negativity. Her father observed silently, often smiling with pride at the woman Lena had become. Lena also began mentoring young women at her program. She shared her story, offered guidance, and helped them build confidence. She encouraged them to see that challenges and setbacks could be transformed into growth and learning. Watching these women gain strength and confidence reminded Lena of her own journey and reinforced her belief in the power of perseverance. Over time, Lena realized that she had reached a point where her past no longer defined her. The humiliation she had endured, the obstacles she had faced, and the patience she had cultivated had all contributed to her strength. She had transformed adversity into opportunity, and her life now reflected her determination, values, and hard work. The man who had first noticed her at the party continued to be a source of encouragement, friendship, and partnership. Their bond had evolved into a deep connection built on shared goals, respect, and trust. Together, they looked forward to future projects, adventures, and the opportunity to make a positive impact on the world around them. Looking back, Lena often reflected on the party where her stepmother had humiliated her. That night, which had once seemed like a low point, had become the catalyst for a remarkable transformation. It had forced her to find strength she did not know she possessed, to cultivate patience, and to embrace her own worth. The experience had shaped her character, teaching her that dignity, kindness, perseverance could overcome even the harshest challenges. Now, Lena walked through life with confidence and purpose. She faced challenges with resilience, pursued opportunities with determination, and extended kindness to those around her. Her journey had been long and often difficult, but it had brought her to a place of empowerment, independence, and fulfillment. The girl who had once been humiliated and overlooked had become a woman who inspired others, lived with integrity, and embraced the promise of a bright future.